Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and our next guest needs no introduction. He's a reporter, Phil Sharkey of the Higher Authority. Welcome back to a segment of Radio Entrepreneurs. Always good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Jonathan. It's a pleasure whenever we do our segments, and I look forward to our conversations and going over what I see in the background screening industry. And today I thought I'd take you through the ultimate background check. Excuse me, Jonathan. What I get, the first request from everyone is criminal records. Some people think that's a full background check. It's not. It's just one component, but it's what everybody wants. And it's really the first step in a background investigation is the criminal records. I think there's a lot of misconceptions. So hopefully in our little segment here, I can clear that up for all of our listeners.
That would be great. I would imagine, and I know you'll get into it, but that there are variances in terms of what a criminal background check is, and the types of things that people are looking for in that criminal background check. And also curious about, we could get into it after we get on the back end, because I'm sure that you're going to tell me just because somebody's made a mistake in the past, there's a possibility that they've rehabilitated, and depending on what the role might be, et cetera, et cetera. But let's talk about it. So tell us about a criminal background check.
Absolutely, Jonathan. There's always a chance of rehabilitation. Of course, in my industry, we also say a leopard doesn't change their spots. So someone with a history usually is repetitive. So the first thing I'd like to say to everyone is there's nothing underhanded. There's nothing backdoor. It's not criminal of nature or big brother of nature. Every check I do has to have a signed release and authorization. So there's nothing I do that's secretive or spying on people. The criminal records, first of all, criminal records are all public records. You and I can go down today. We can go to any courthouse in Massachusetts, and if we want to check any person, it's a public record document. You surely can. For myself, Jonathan, because we do it for a business purpose, I have to have either a signed release and consent. Not someone calls me up and say, hey, that neighbor of mine, Jonathan, is, I don't like him. His dog is always barking. See what you got on him. We can't do that. We have to do it for pre-employment purposes, for tenancy purposes with a release. I also can do it for what's called a due diligent reason, which is a company may be having an internal investigation and they have reason to believe that this block of employees was involved in theft, maybe in the past and currently at their company, or there's been some type of sexual misconduct and they're doing an internal investigation. So I'm always well within my rights whenever I get a criminal record to search. When I do, the first thing all my clients want is give me a national search, Phil. I want the whole country searched. It seems to be the best search, right? We have them, Jonathan. We have a national search, but first of all, anybody who gets screening companies that tout these searches, they're terrible. We're not the FBI. We're not the CIA. They're terrible because, first of all, there's like 5 or 6 states that don't even allow statewide checks. So how can you get a national check?
I think you've just answered one of my questions. So everything happens on a state by state in terms of the laws, but the things may be on a local level in terms of courts. Is that?
That's absolutely correct. And this national search, and the reason I don't like it, and I surely do it to be competitive in the screening industry with my competitors, is it's a database search. I want to do a court search. I want to search through the state or county courthouses. The national search is a database. It's like a compilation search. They call it the wants and warrants. It pulls from all different public records. And to be honest, Jonathan, it's just not complete. It might be good in Texas. It's poor in Florida. It might be great in Connecticut. It's terrible in New Hampshire. So you're not getting a good search. And then finally, when I do get a search, what I want to get from my clients is what happened. Not just that this person was involved in an assault and battery. What was the disposition? What was the finding? These national searches often do not have what happened. So to me, they're rendered useless. It's no good telling you that I have 3 assaults on someone in Texas. So what happened, Phil? I don't know. So we surely have them. I tell people just Google someone. It's probably just as successful as the national search. So the best criminal search is a statewide criminal search. It gives you obviously the geographic boundaries of an entire state. Everybody knows the term CORI. That's who oversees Massachusetts. Stands for Criminal Offender Record Index. People always want do a CORI. I want a CORI. But one flaw, some of these statewide searches, Jonathan, like the CORI, unless it's for childcare, it involves criminal cases and open cases and convictions only. So not every arrest would be listed there. So in theory, for the CORI even, you could have someone with 10 assault and batteries, never convicted, and that CORI would come back clear. So definitely a little bit of flaw when people think of how great they're going to get this CORI search and it's outstanding. Good search for Massachusetts. There's 5 states which do not allow statewide checks. Interesting enough, Jonathan, they're Alaska, California, which I understand they're a big Privacy Act state, Louisiana, Ohio, and Wyoming. So those 5 states do not allow for a statewide criminal check.
Wow.
And
So it's really interesting. That's sort of a random distribution, in terms of how we think about states.
It is. And again, every state sets up their legislature and how they're going to conduct business. But California, I understand, is a big Privacy Act state. And what they do is the law says they have to allow it. And what they'll request is like a fingerprint card on a person. So if you were my client and I was doing a background check for your company, you're not going to have a fingerprint card in your applicant. We'll have a signed release, but not a fingerprint card. So statewide is my preferred option, but those 5 states are off limits. We can't do that. So what do you do next? The next search is a county criminal search. That's the search we do for most of our clients. Jonathan's a great search. We can search any county in the United States. Turnaround time is 2 to 3 business days. It's very quick. We get arrests as well as convictions. We report honestly, I'm not out to harm anyone. But if I have someone, as we mentioned, with 4 assault and batteries, never convicted because the person usually needs to show up to get that conviction and they're scared to death of the person. My client gets a pretty good idea, like this seems to be more than just a little bit of bad luck. It seems like this person could be an aggressive person that I don't want here. So county criminal searches are what we do for everyone. And then the final search we do have access to is a federal district court search. And that's for people, it's a different court than the regular courts. That's the courts you always hear, the feds. So that'd be someone involved in maybe kidnapping, wire fraud, money laundering, bookies, those type of things. You get arrested by the feds. So I just had a case last year where someone said the criminal came back clear, but I was told then we did a federal district court because it was a federal case. So the local police courts will not have a record of that case. That's in a separate court. So criminal searches are really necessary, obviously. The one thing I'd like to add in our limited time here is a search is only as good as knowing where the person has lived. So I always suggest to our clients that we do an address search first on the person. So for example, you would check Massachusetts on myself, but they don't know that I lived in Connecticut for a long, long time. That's my history. So that's sometimes where you want to check is where they've been, not where they are.
And in terms of the accuracy, I know you pointed out some of the flaws in the systems, but is an address alone just enough? Because it's interesting if I meet somebody or for whatever context, they may Google somebody. You get 65 people with that possible name, and you get age ranges, and you may get addresses. And I've noticed just in my limited searching of people that it seems as though there's a blending, if you will, of information often. Somebody who you may say a spouse or a family member who that's not a spouse or a family member, yet they have it in the database. So are the checks that you're doing or they've often said that the ultimate check is tying the social security number to the individual, to the address, to the name, to multiple layers of validating. Is that something that is typically done in your case, or is that something that you need to do in order to ensure that you've got the right person?
Yeah, Jonathan, it's a great point because many of my clients would come back and most of our searches cost, for example, the national search is $30, and usually screening companies won't share their pricing with you. We have no agenda here, but honesty. Statewide searches can cost $50 to $60. The county criminal, our biggest criminal search is $45. But I often get people who go to me, well, I have this company on the Google here that, is going to charge me $18. I can do everything. And I'm like, as you mentioned, Jonathan, what you get back, you don't get a date of birth match, which we always do. Searching through a courthouse compared to a database is worlds of difference. When I get a record, I'm going to be darn well sure I got the right person, especially with the popularity of names today, whether it's Bob Smith or Jose Santos in the Spanish name situation. It's such a popular name. We get date of birth match. We usually get an address match, where they lived or where they used to live. Social Security, not as much anymore. They want to protect socials. Police don't ask for that when they arraign or when they arrest. So our information is exact. So when I feel I come back and I have a record on a Jonathan Freedman, it's a popular name, Jonathan. So it's not your record. It's the record of my applicant. And I can be rest assured that when they confront them and say, we have this, this, and this, that they're going to be exact. And that's why our court searches can't be beat and are better than doing it the other way. Because liability wise, if you accuse someone wrongly, you have a lot of employment law issues, and you could have defamation of character. We're never going to go down that road. So we won't report something if it's just a name match.
Interesting stuff. One other follow-up question, Phil, because I think this pertains to businesses. When would you typically suggest a criminal background check? It's based on type of role that somebody's applying to, or when is
Absolutely,
the right?
Jonathan. Yeah, great question as well, because you're in the pre-employment screening environment. So we actually recommend it for any position that you're considering hiring, because every position has value to the company, and there can be the links in the chain situation. Obviously, as you go higher up the ladder, a more extensive check might be necessary, but a criminal record check, I think, should be conducted on someone who's pushing a broom in a warehouse position right up to the CEO of the company. You want to know where you stand with violence today, with unwell people. Anyone can impact your company's bottom line from the lowest position to the highest. So a criminal record check. I mentioned the pricing. For a very fair amount, we can do an address search for $10, and a criminal, as I mentioned, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $40, $45. So for $55 or $60, even the lowest tier employee. We do it for a lot of hotel chains, for housekeepers, very necessary. These are people that aren't going to cost the client doesn't want to pay a lot of money for. They're very transient. They come and go, but the need far out.
But the impact on the organization could be huge: reputation, theft, etc. Phil Sharkey, president and owner of the Hire Authority. Always great to hear from you. Always great to get your insight. If people want to reach out to you, find out more, conduct their own, conduct criminal background checks on behalf of their organization, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Right through the internet is hireauth.com, hireauth.com. All our information's right there. You can even call us toll free, and we have an office where people answer the phones. You can get through to someone at 888-230-5901.
Wonderful. As always, our ace reporter in the field, Phil Sharkey of the Hire Authority. Thanks so much for being on Radio Entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Jonathan.
And we'll be right back with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.